climbing up, when I am going down, I feel that the higher light is coming into my mind. It is also descending with me. Okay, I am descending down the stairs, but I have opened my head and Swarna's light is entering into me. You can also think of your heart being open and mother entering into you. Okay, entering and descending. So you can make it something much more significant than simply the physical development. Okay, that's one thing. And when you are climbing up, think that mother is there at the top of the mountain or even at the top of the stairs and you are going towards her. So each step that you take, you feel that you are going nearer to her, nearer to her. And when you reach the top of the stairs, you feel that you have reached the mother and you are bowing down to her. Okay, it can be made very, very significant. Simply a climbing the stairs and coming down the stairs can be made into something part of your spiritual life. Okay, so that is what she means. But she has spoken here only of the physical effect, but it can also become a spiritual effect. Your imagination is a very powerful tool. So if you can use it that way, it becomes wonderful. And that can be not necessarily only climbing the stairs and going, but even walking, okay? Even when you are walking or you're going from one place to another, whatever you are doing, you can think of mother being with you and always, whenever you have a problem, you address your problem to her. Normally, it doesn't happen. You try to find a solution either in the physical world or you ask somebody. But why not ask the Supreme Lord who knows all the answers? So, and the more you do that without any doubt in your mind, okay, that's the important part. Sometimes we have a doubt, okay. I am asking, but will the answer come? That sort of doubt is there, but the doubt should not be there. It should be as frank and as pure as a small child demanding something from the mother, from her own mother, the child's mother. Okay, you want something special to eat, then you ask, and you are sure that she will give it to you because she loves you. So, in the same way, like the purity of a child's demand. Okay, mind you, an adult's demand is not the pure thing, but a child's demand is there is purity in this sense that the child knows very well that the mother is going to satisfy. So that sort of connection should be there. So that is what I think mother is saying. It's a very interesting video. Arvind Dakki has put it up on the with the right quotations. He has done a good job. Okay. So shall we start reading today?
I have sent a video on Skype, but I don't know whether it will be open or no. I have sent a separate video to Archana Di also on WhatsApp.
No, they can see it later on.
This video has done rounds in the 2-3 days. Has been coming.
I also have that. There's your, and then it says download. And when I clicked on that download, it says accept, cancel, accept, and don't ask again. And there's a note also. So I'll read that later on. Anyway, I think we can start the synthesis class. And Sunki has put we are on page 489 and we have to read all changes when we pass from mind to gnosis. So shall we start reading? And he says we have to start a new para. So one of you has to read. So Sunki, you have not read for a long time. So why don't you read today? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. So read it. Okay. All changes. Then we'll discuss.
Yes. All changes when you pass from mind to gnosis. For there a direct inherent knowledge is the central principle. The Gnostic Vijnana Maya being is, in its character, a truth consciousness, a center and circumference of the truth vision of things, a massed movement or subtle body of gnosis. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. Its action is a self-fulfilling and radiating action of the truth power of things according to the inner law of their deepest, truest self and nature. This truth of things, at which we must arrive before we can enter into the gnosis, for in that all exists, and from that all originates on the Gnostic plane, is, first of all, a truth of unity, of oneness, but of unity originating diversity, unity in multiplicity, and still unity always on indefeasible oneness. State of gnosis, the condition of Vijnana Maya being, is impossible without an ample and close self-identification of ourselves with all existence and with all existences, a universal pervasiveness, a universal comprehension or containing a certain all-in-allness. A Gnostic Purusha has normally the consciousness of itself as infinite, normally too, the consciousness of containing the world in itself and exceeding it. It is not like the divided mental being, normally bound to a consciousness that feels itself contained in the world and a part of it. It follows that a deliverance from the limiting and imprisoning ego is the first elementary step toward the being of the gnosis. For so long as we live in the ego, it is idle to hope for this higher reality, this vast self-consciousness, this true self-knowledge. The least reversion to ego thought, ego action, ego will brings back the consciousness tumbling out of such Gnostic truth as it has attained into the falsehoods of the divided mind nature. A secure universality of being is the very basis of this luminous higher consciousness. Abandoning all rigid separateness, but getting instead a certain transcendent overlook or independence, we have to feel ourselves one with all things and beings, to identify ourselves with them, to become aware of them as ourselves, to feel their being as our own, to admit their consciousness as a part of ours, to contact their energy as intimate to our energy, to learn how to be oneself with all. That oneness is not indeed all that is indeed, but it is the first condition, and without it, there is no gnosis.
Okay, so very interesting para, and we'll look at all the words and understand what he's saying. Very interesting. We'll go back to the beginning. So what he's saying is, when you go from the normal mind and you go to gnosis, even by gnosis, even below the gnosis also, when you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, everything changes. Okay. From your ego consciousness, limited imprisonment, you go into the freedom of the skies. It's absolutely something quite different. For there is a direct inherent knowledge. For there, a direct inherent knowledge is the central principle. Let's look at the two words, direct and inherent. Direct means not indirect through the senses. That's what it means. Okay. Directly your consciousness is experiencing the consciousness of the Supreme. There's nothing in between. There is no instrumentation there. That is meant by direct. Your consciousness becomes the consciousness of whatever you want to know. Suppose I want to know what Sunki is thinking. Okay. Then my consciousness becomes one with her consciousness. It is possible because consciousness is something subtle, and two stones cannot mix, two bodies cannot mix, but two glasses of water can mix, and something even subtle can mix very easily. Okay, even water which is so relatively dense can mix. So your consciousness can also mix with some other consciousness very easily. Okay, so that is what is meant by direct, without instrumentation of senses or nothing in between. That is direct. Inherent. Inherent knowledge means it is not a knowledge which is acquired over time, little by little, as in science and as in our education. We go to school and 3 years of kindergarten, 6 years of schooling, then you enter into the higher course, and then you do a PhD. All this is what? You are acquiring knowledge bit by bit, and you have got knowledge, but it's a collection. Now, this knowledge in the supermind is not a collection. It is an inherent knowledge which is already there, And it is like you enter into a room and whatever is there in the room, you see. It's exactly like that. That's what is meant by inherent. Okay. So each word has got suggestions and we have to understand that. So direct inherent knowledge is its central principle. You become the supermind and you come to know. This principle is also applicable even at other levels. Okay, higher mind, element mind, your consciousness becomes the higher mind. You don't use any instruments, intuition. Okay. As you keep going higher and higher, the instrumentation becomes subtler and subtler until finally there is no instrumentation necessary at all. You become what you want to do, identification. So that's what he's saying in the first sentence. Very clear. All changes when we pass from mind to supermind. When you are in the mind, you see the many. When you are in the gnosis, you start seeing the one. When you are in the mind, there are forms. Okay. When you go to the gnosis, it's a formlessness. Okay. So these are all the differences. Totally different. All changes. Completely opposite view of understanding things. For there, a direct inherent knowledge is central principle. I go to the next sentence. The Gnostic, Vijnanamaya. Vijnana is the Indian word for that because you have, it's a very flexible definition. Vijnana is actually, Sri Aurobindo says it corresponds to the supermind. But in our other, there is a gradation of 5 planes in our Indian systems. There is 5 planes. There is first of all the Annamaya Purusha. The Annamaya is the stage for material being. Then you have the Pranamaya Purusha. Then you have the vital energy. Then you have the Manomaya Purusha. Then you have the, when you go up, Vijnanamaya Purusha. You go to the higher level. Then finally you have the Anandamaya Purusha. These are the 5 planes. But as I said, the division is flexible. But Vijnana usually corresponds to the, sometimes in our scriptures it can also mean the spiritual planes of consciousness. So, Vijnanamaya being, here Sri Aurobindo is very clear. Vijnanamaya, he is referring to the Gnostic, which is the supramental plane. The Vijnana, the Gnostic being, is in its character a truth consciousness. Sri Aurobindo often uses the word truth consciousness for the supermind. Okay. The truth consciousness, normally he does not use for the spiritual planes of consciousness, which is level 2, but he uses it for level 3. Okay. A center and conference, a center and circumference of the truth vision of things. Now, isn't that interesting? You are the center, the essence, and you are also the circumference. In other words, you are the one as well as the many. The center is the one and the circumference is the many. So at that level, you are conscious both of oneness as well as the many. In other words, you are conscious of the divine, the transcendental, but you are also conscious of the world, the manifestation. Both are visible to you. A mass movement or subtle body of gnosis. Now that's interesting. A mass movement, the Chit Ghana, what they call it, okay? Something very, very dense. Okay? It is the mass movement, Chit Ghana. It is concentrated only in itself. You are aware only of the transcendent. The transcendent consciousness excludes the physical world. God is only in himself. Selva also used the word in himself. You know the God in himself without the world. So that is a mass movement. But then he says a very interesting word, this mass movement can be a subtle body of gnosis. It's a body. So therefore it is dense. Okay. But it is subtle. Okay. So such interesting words he uses. It is dense from our, that's the only way to describe it. It is full of essence, but it is subtle. Okay. Actually, the subtler it is, the more real and dense it is. Okay. Our idea of density is not the correct one. The more subtle, the more dense it is actually. The real, more real it is. Its action. Whose action? The supermind's. Its action is a self-fulfilling and radiating action of the truth power of things according to the inner law of their deepest, truest self and nature. So, what does the sentence mean? Its action. the action of the supermind, is self-fulfilling. At our level, when we are trying, we have partial self-fulfilling. Okay? When I'm trying to understand a concept in the mind, I can understand part of it, but it's not a complete self-fulfilling. In the supermind, your full satisfaction is there. Self-fulfilling, you can also use the word satisfaction. Satisfaction of what? Satisfaction of knowledge, satisfaction of power, satisfaction of consciousness, satisfaction of ananda also. Okay. So it is self-fulfilling, and yet it's a radiating action going outwards. Okay. Because you understand the world also. Radiating, coming out of the truth power of things according to the inner law of their deepest, truest self and nature. In other words, when the individual is in the supramental consciousness, he sees the reality of the highest and also of the lowest. But at the lowest, it becomes a many. And so each one is different. Okay. Each one of us is part of the Supreme, but we have all got different natures. So that's what he's saying. You see the many, you see the oneness essentially, but you also see the many with differences. That's what he's saying. Okay. And that difference is according to the inner law of the deepest, truest self and nature. In other words, when he's making the many, each of the many expresses one aspect of the truth. So Yasmin represents one aspect of the truth. Archanadi will express another aspect of the truth. Shilpa will express another aspect of the truth. And Sumki also will express another aspect of the truth. So it is all true because you have to express one aspect of the divine. The divine has infinite aspects. So at the lower level, each one has got a different nature, yet essentially all coming from that mass oneness. Okay? That's what he's saying. This truth of things at which we must arrive before we can enter into the gnosis, for in that all exists and from that all originates on the Gnostic plane. So this is a Srendo's way of doing which nobody else does. Comma dash. He has put a parenthetical phrase into his text. So we have to read it in two ways. First of all, we read it in the normal way, and then after that you read it without the parenthetical phrase and then add the parenthetical phrase later on. So if we read it for meaning's sake, we eliminate the comma dash. Okay, so I read it this way. This truth of things, which truth? Supramental truth of things, at which we must arrive before we can enter into the gnosis, is first of all a truth of unity, of oneness, but of unity originating diversity, unity in multiplicity, and still unity always, an indefeasible oneness. What does the word indefeasible mean? That which cannot be, not possible to undo, inalienable. Once you have that, it can never be destroyed. Okay, indefeasible oneness. So before you go to the supramental, the oneness should be experienced. That's what he's saying. Now we can go back to the parenthetical phrase. For in that all exists and from that all originates on the Gnostic plane. That is the starting point of manifestation. We have seen that very clearly, but I repeat, the lower manifestation, the universe and the cosmos is a many. And as you keep going up, you start seeing the oneness. And supermind is the one that starts the manifestation of the many. But above the supermind is sheer oneness. There is no many there. Okay? And there is no manifestation also. You go outside manifestation, the transcendent. So that's what he's saying. The manifestation of the many starts from the supramental level. For in that, in the supermind, all exists. Everything is there in essential form, in potential. And from that, all originates on the Gnostic plane. Is, first of all, a truth of unity. So first of all, when you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, which is level 2, you start seeing the unity. In fact, if you have the cosmic consciousness, you see the many. You see the one and the many. Okay. But of unity originating diversity. It's a unity which has got both. It's like you are conscious of the sea, but you are also conscious of the waves. Okay? You see that the waves are all part of the sea. That's what he's saying. Originate in diversity. Unity in multiplicity. And still, unity always an indivisible oneness. Although you see the many, you know that they are all part of the oneness. State of gnosis, the condition of Vijnanamaya being, is impossible without an ample and close self-identification of ourselves with all existence. This huge sentence means a cosmic consciousness. You can be aware of everything at the same time. But is it possible? Will it not create a confusion? So what the cosmic consciousness means is that whatever you want to identify yourself with, the basis is there. You can do that. You focus on one, you will come to know what you want to know. Suppose mother is there, for instance, and if she wants to know what Sunki is thinking, she'll identify herself with Sunki so that she knows everything that Sunki is thinking or feeling. Okay. She does the same with others. Because if the cosmic consciousness, everything enters into you, you will be a total, you'll go mad. So the possibility of identifying yourself with anything you want is there. That is what is meant by cosmic consciousness. Okay? Everything is there, only you have to focus and see what you want to. And you are capable of doing that. That's what is meant by the cosmic consciousness. Okay? So, state of gnosis, condition of Vijnanamaya being, is impossible without an ample and close self-identification of ourselves with all existence. Note very carefully, he is saying ample and close. He is not saying full. Ample, sufficient and close identification. That is what is possible at the spiritual level of consciousness. But it becomes absolutely complete at the higher level. So, very clearly the words ample and close implies the spiritual planes of consciousness. Without the spiritual identification of yourself with the cosmos, it is not possible to go to the supermind. He is telling you that very clearly. Okay. So, and close self-identification of ourselves with all existence and with all existences, a universal pervasiveness, a universal comprehension. Comprehension in the sense of not understanding, but inclusion. Okay. The word comprehension here does not mean understanding. Like in French, we have comprendre. Okay. It is not comprehension. Comprehension is the two meanings. One is the understanding of things, comprehension. But the other meaning is to comprehend means to acquire and attach and acquire. Okay. So in that sense, it means inclusion. Inclusion, and Shivdev is making it very clear by or containing. It includes everything, contains everything. A certain all in allness. Look at that word. All in allness. Okay. All suggests many, but it's an allness. So how interestingly Shivdev puts his words. Nah? So all suggests the many, but it's not many separately. It's many in oneness. So, all in allness. You really must appreciate the way he puts things, okay? All in allness. All, many, and allness in oneness. The Gnostic Purusha has normally the consciousness of itself as infinite, normally too the consciousness of containing the world in itself. That's what happens when you are in the transcendent and you contain the whole world in itself. I refer you back to those sonnets, Nirvana and the cosmic consciousness. There is a sonnet, the cosmic consciousness. He says the whole world is in me. Okay. The two largest stars in the universe are burning within me, he says. Okay. That's the cosmic consciousness. Containing the whole world in itself and exceeding it, even beyond the world also. Okay. It is not like the divided mental being, normally bound to a consciousness that feels itself contained in the world and part of it. Normally you think that you are part of the world. You see, and you are a very small element in the world. But at that time, your consciousness feels that it is outside the world and includes the world in yourself. It follows that the deliverance from the limiting and imprisoning ego is the first elementary step towards the being of the gnosis. So we stop here. It follows that a deliverance, that means mukti, moksha, from the limiting and imprisoning ego. Not only does your body, mind, life limit and imprison your soul, but the ego is also a very important prisoner. It imprisons you. So when your identification with body, mind, life ceases, the ego also disappears. So it is the first step. Unless you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, level 2, you cannot go to level 3. That's what he's saying very clearly. It follows that a deliverance from the limiting and imprisoning ego is the first elementary step. Now note that word imprisoning, it's not an image. It's an actual fact. Your psychic being and the true soul is imprisoned in the body. The body is something physical, and your soul is in the body, in the vital, in the mind. And it comes out, it is mukti. It realizes that it was making a mistake all this time by identifying itself with the body, mind, life. Now it is not. Ego also disappears. This is the first elementary step towards the being of the gnosis. For so long as we live in the ego, it is idle to hope for this higher reality, this vast self-consciousness, this true self-knowledge. Because if you are at the spiritual levels of consciousness, you get self-knowledge, but it's not the ultimate self-knowledge. Okay? Level 3 is the ultimate self-knowledge. The least reversion to ego thought, ego action, ego will brings back the consciousness tumbling out of such a Gnostic truth as it has attained into the falsehoods of the divided mind nature. Now, this is a very interesting word. He used the word tumbling out. So, we will have a look at that. I'll give you an example also of what it means. Okay, tumbling out, it's immediate. It can happen like that. Okay? I have come across 2 cases in the ashram and it was like that. One is the famous case of Vasudha Ben. Vasudha Ben was the one who used to look after mother physically. Okay, like afterwards Kumud was looking after mother, seeing to all her physical needs. So Vasudha Ben also was looking after her. When Vasudha Ben came to the ashram when she was an 18-year-old girl, even younger perhaps, and when she came here, mother has drawn a picture of her, na? You have seen that. A very beautiful drawing. Mother has drawn many faces, and Vasudha Ben is one of them. So, Vasudha Ben, when she was an 18-year-old, she had the experience of the silent mind. Okay, I am explaining the word tumbling out. Okay, it is not that your lower nature pulls you down slowly, and over many days you slowly lose the consciousness that you have, and you come down to your normal self. That also can happen. It does happen. Because if you are in the higher consciousness and the higher consciousness is strong, it lasts for many days. Some experiences last for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, sometimes for years together, until it becomes permanent. But here, this experience of self-realization is tumbling out, immediate, instantaneous. That's what I am explaining to you. It can happen in 2 ways, either slowly or immediately. And now this example that I am giving you, okay? So, Vasudha Ben was in the silent mind. And one day she was seeing mother. Everybody was going to mother in a queue. And when she saw that mother was being extremely solicitous, very kind, and smiling so beautifully to one of the sadhaks or sadhika, I don't remember. Maybe that is not even mentioned. Okay. She had a streak of jealousy which entered into her. Why is mother not doing this to me? Okay. And what happened? She came tumbling down. Okay. She lost that silent mind experience suddenly. It was like a huge glass window pane being shattered. and she came down straight away to her normal mind. So look at the word tumbling. It's not something, it's not an image, it's a reality. Okay. So this is one example. Another example I will also give you, a very young child studying in the school. Okay. She had an interesting experience for one day. She was in a very calm, quiet atmosphere, and she knew that this is a special consciousness. It's not a normal consciousness. But at the end of the day, there was an incident at home with the parents, and there was maybe some disharmony, and the parents scolded her or something, and she immediately lost that consciousness. She told me this story herself. So there again, tumbling down. So it can happen in two ways. It can happen that when you attain to the psychic consciousness or the self, it can last for a long time. And slowly, you come down to the lower levels. And when you come down to the lower levels, from the spiritual point of view, it is to make you aware that your lower consciousness also needs change. So you should not view it in a negative manner. You have to see it in a positive manner if you are a follower of Sri Aurobindo. Okay. If you are a follower of Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga, you have to see the coming down into the lower consciousness to nature is telling you, or rather the divine is telling you, look, at the lower level, there is still darkness. Change it. Okay. That is what I meant by coming down. So you can have the experience and lose it slowly or suddenly. That's what is meant by tumbling out of such Gnostic truth, as has attained in the falsehood of the divided mind nature. You can descend in two ways. That's what is being said. A secure universality of being is the very basis of the luminous higher consciousness. So it has to be secure. Secure means permanent. Okay. Now you don't fall below to that other level. Okay. When Sri Aurobindo attained the overmind consciousness, finished. After that, his mind can never, his consciousness can never come down below that level. It is secure and permanent. Okay? The very basis of the luminous higher consciousness. Abandoning all rigid separateness, but getting instead a certain transcendent overlook or independence. We have to feel ourselves one with all beings, cosmic consciousness, all things and beings, to identify ourselves with them, to become aware of them as ourselves. They are part of me. To feel their being as our own, to admit their consciousness as part of ours, to contact their energy as intimate to our energy, to learn how to be one self with all. That oneness is not indeed all that is needed, but it's a first condition, and without it, there is no gnosis. So we look at what he's saying. He is talking on the three levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. He says that if you want to go to level 3 supermind, you have to go through level 2. And see the words carefully, you will see what he's saying. So we have to feel ourselves one with all things and beings, not only things, but not only beings, creatures, but even non-living things also, with all things and beings, to identify ourselves with them, to become aware of them as ourselves, okay? To feel their being as our own. Now, Sri Aurobindo's prose is very interesting. To feel their being as ours, even the body, okay, their body, their substance is our substance. To admit their consciousness as part of ours, okay. So consciousness, Chit, being Sat, okay. To admit their consciousness, Chit, as part of ours. To contact their energy, Shakti, as intimate to our energy. To learn how to be one self with all. So, Sat, Chit, Ananda. In every way, you must be able to contact the other person's substance, consciousness, force, as well as Ananda. He is not included in Ananda here because at the spiritual level, it may not be there. Okay? It may not be there, it can be there also. That oneness, the spiritual oneness, is not indeed all that is needed. Level 2 is not the full thing. That's what he's saying very clearly. The spiritual consciousness is not the full thing. But it's a first condition, and without this, there can be no gnosis, there can be no level 3. Okay, so to understand what he's saying, we have to go behind the words and see exactly what he's saying. When he's saying that oneness is not indeed all that is needed, you are at the level 2, spiritual level plane of consciousness, which is fantastic, but not the ultimate. That's what he's saying. So we still have a good amount of time. We have 6 minutes. We can read the next paragraph, unless there are questions. But I think it's very clear what you said. If you want to go to the supramental level, first go to the spiritual planes of consciousness, lose your identification with body, mind, life, get rid of your ego, realize that you are one with everybody else and that everybody else is included in you. Identify yourself with everybody else, feel their pain and their joy, okay? And then you can climb to the 3rd level. That's what it is. So, we read the next paragraph. We can maybe just read it.
A very elementary question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
What exactly is the meaning of truth? It's not the opposite of lies. But what exactly does truth consciousness mean?
Oh.
How does consciousness differ from truth consciousness?
Consciousness can be the understanding of things in the physical world, of appearances, of forms. But truth consciousness means that you are going to the essence of everything and not only limiting yourself to the form. You are going right into, in other words, if you want to make it very, very concrete to yourself, when I am looking at something, I am seeing Yasmin, I recognize her by her body features. Oh, this is Yasmin. But I will be at a far higher level of consciousness if I recognize you by your soul, because the soul also goes on differing from person to person. So if I am seeing your soul and not the body, mind, life, then I am in a relatively truth consciousness. But even that is not full, because your soul may be different from other people's souls. So when I realize that all the souls are one, that is a truth consciousness. Yasmin?
What does the word truth actually mean in Sri Aurobindo's yoga? It's not opposite of lies.
No, not in that sense. Actually, truth is Sat, and Sat is that which exists. Okay, and this is a very interesting way of looking at it. Take it in a very material sense. Okay, truth is that which you see, the ultimate truth. That is the Sat, that which exists. You see the substance of things. Everything has got a substance. Subtle substance, gross substance, subtlest substance. So that is the truth. And that reveals the consciousness as well as the Shakti, as well as the Ananda. There's a substance which is absolutely what you see. That's the last. So when you see the substance of everybody, and that substance also is the soul of everybody, the subtle. So truth in that sense. Truth, consciousness, and bliss. Constantly uses these 3 words. Truth is the Sat. And Sat, in a very material sense, is a substance. Because that is the thing that exists. You have to think about it.
Rangada, what does substance mean here?
Substance, there are many conditions of substance. Okay? So, as I told you, if you want to understand substance at the grossest level, it is matter. Agreed? It's a substance. Steel is a substance, plastic is a substance, okay, wood is a substance. Is that clear? Material. Okay. Now, but this substance can become subtler and subtler. You have water, which is also substance, but it is much more subtle. It is flowing, it's not rigid. Then you go to air, which is even more, you can feel the air. It is substance, but it becomes subtler. And the best way to understand this is the image between ice, water, and water vapor. Okay, all is substance. But at the lowest level, it is a very thick substance. It's a substance which is open to the senses. But as you keep going higher and higher, this substance becomes subtler and subtler, and the senses can't feel it, but you have to go to other instrumentations of understanding things. Subtle senses, finally, the senses get replaced by the instruments of light, sight, and finally, identification. Intuition also comes in. These are all the instruments of knowledge at the higher level. And you can understand the truth of things by direct contact. Your substance becomes the substance of everybody else. It's a real substance. Okay? It is a material, but material, very subtle material. This is what it means.
So when we go to Sri Aurobindo's room, there is a board small, cling to truth.
Then you go to Surendra's room.
There is a small board is there where it is written, cling to truth.
Yes.
So this means this truth we have to cling on.
Yeah. So, okay. It's 8:35. So next time we'll read this. This universality is impossible. Okay?
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Have a nice day.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay.